Hello, everyone. Welcome to our peer-to-peer session, Unveiling the Art of Project Development and Execution with Kat Knutsen. My name is Hendrik Hernandez-Resto. I am the Creative Specialist at New Bedford Creative. Thank you for joining us today. Before I go any further, please enter your first and last name in the chat along with your email for our records. We thank you for that. Excuse me. This peer-to-peer series is geared to enrich, educate, and connect creatives within our community. New Bedford is the home of artists, creatives, changemakers, designers, entrepreneurs, and community enthusiasts. And the peer-to-peer sessions embrace the pulse that makes New Bedford so unique while expanding our knowledge and connections. New Bedford Creative offers many opportunities for artists and cultural organizations. Join our creative directory, apply for one of our grants or call to arts, list your event on our calendar, all for free, at our website, newbedfordcreative.org. Peer-to-peer sessions is supported in part by the City of New Bedford through the American Rescue Plan Award and Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund, facilitated by New Bedford Creative at the New Bedford Economic Development Council. We would like to thank Mayor John Mitchell, his administration, and the entire New Bedford City Council for their continued support of the creative sector. This is just one component of a broader initiative to boost arts-based economic development and help the creative sector recover from the pandemic. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to go over the format for this session. Once I'm done, I will pass it over to Kat. Once Kat is finished, we will open up for a Q&A. I will review the questions in the chat first, and then we can continue on with the Q&A live. We have about 20 minutes for questions so we can wrap up on time by 2 p.m. Just so everyone is aware, this session will be recorded. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat so we don't miss them when we open up for Q&A. Most sessions throughout the series have been recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel at New Bedford Creative in the following weeks. I would like to introduce our guest speaker, artist, muralist, educator, and so much more, Kat Knutsen, who will teach you all about the ins and outs of project development and execution. I will now pass it over to Kat to share more details of who she is and what she will present for us today. Go for it, Kat. I am muting myself now.
Thank you so much, Hendrik, for that introduction. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm honored to be one of the peer-to-peer presenters, and I'm very thankful to live in a city that supports the arts and also connects the arts to economic development. I feel like we're in a really special time right now, and we're in a really sweet spot. And it's really important for artists to learn the basics and to share information with one another on how to take your creative practice into more of a business practice. I'm going to share some notes with you on some experiences I've had with 3 different projects, and also try to highlight some things that I've noticed in both areas of the creative practice and business practice. If you have a notepad and paper, I'm going to try to run through these things not too fast, but also make sure that there's time available at the end to have plenty of time to answer any questions or ideas that you have. Here we go. I'm going to share the screen. Can y'all see the screen okay? Here we go. So I have a company that I started a few years ago. It's called Kat Knutsen Studios. The company started because of a mural project that I took on with the Superflat organization called Superflat with the Neil Weiss's company. I believe it was fiber optics. And I had to learn a lot about, how to take somebody's concept, somebody's vision, bring it to life, and also give them the impact that they were looking for. And that was my first time working with a large budget. It was my first time working with other organizations. It was my first time managing a team of artists, and also looking at different conversations that were going on, from design approval, budget approval, getting access to equipment. and then managing schedules of assistants that were helping with the project. So that's going to be one of the things I'm going to be sharing with you today. Let's go to the first slide. All right. So one of the really important things as a creative when you're trying to go into the business world is you want to define a project that you're wanting to bring to life. There's a lot of brainstorming that can go into this, a lot of reflection, personal experience, things that you're really inspired by. Me particularly, I've always been really inspired by music. I've always been inspired by how musicians bring a really amazing quality to an environment. They create an air of celebration. They help support in a time of mourning. They help create, they further enhance a vibe that's already occurring within a scene. Another project I'm going to be sharing, using as an example, is Long Swan Project. This was a really, this is a recent project that's been an experiment over the past couple of years. It's a music project that I've developed with 3 musicians, and then it started to develop with other bands and other music performers in the New Bedford and South Coast region. And then another project I'm going to share some information about is the Sight v Sound project. This is a project where it was about direct community engagement with music and artists, finding sponsors, working with venues, trying to further the efforts that the city of New Bedford is taking to bring more revenue in for tourism and in the entertainment sector. So I'm going to reference these 3 projects intermittently throughout the presentation. As artists, we kind of come from a place that's more intuitive. You know, we have these inspiring moments that, you know, make us think, okay, I want to make a piece, or I want to put together an idea, or I want to do a collaboration with that comes from a point of like a topic that really inspires us, or an event that we experience that we want to highlight more on, or if we want to connect with others. We naturally go through these cycles of experimenting. We're trying to bring a lot of expression to subjects and highlight things that are really important to us. We think about ideas like aesthetics, the materials that we use, any sort of story that we're trying to show, any sort of symbolism that gets integrated into the narratives that we share. We bring ideas to life, we bring visions to life, we're very reflective, and we're kind of like, we're a strong pulse, like a societal pulse that, you know, shows both externally and internally the things that are affecting our lives day by day. And we, as artists, like when we engage with one another, there's that feedback that we give each other, the critique, like, you know, when I see this piece, it makes me think of, I love how you use this material approach. When you're working with a performance nature, like you're listening to other musicians, for example, perform, you're hearing how they're moving across the scales, you're listening to the way that they're expressing on their instruments. As sculptors, you're looking at the materials you're working with, the subject matter, you know, the nature of how the series that you're working on is further enhancing something that is really important to you concept-wise. Right? Versus from a business point of view, you know, it's more almost like a brass tacks like type of a thing. It's like you're thinking strategy, you're thinking about how can I bring this concept to life in a viable way? How can I optimize this subject that means a lot to me, to you, to creatives? Like, how can I optimize this idea? How can I bring this experience to others? How can I help an idea that is more of a collective idea, you know, be brought to life and made available to the community? There's metrics that you're assessing, like how many people saw this, how many people had access to this, how many people could afford this, how many people enjoyed this. That's the analysis and metrics component. You've got the different structure of execution from planning, marketing, managing, and you've got the profitability. I think profitability is something really interesting to look at. There's obviously like bottom line things, like did it pay for itself? Were you able to viably do a type of event again, or create a product and make more of that product, sell that product? That's one way that we look at profitability, but I think there's other metrics of profitability we can look at, like relationships, collaborations, the ability to continue to grow an idea, but see it through the stances of different creatives or different professionals, and seeing it kind of gain legs through different approaches. Like, let's say if you have an idea that's about accessibility, and you want to create a event that highlights a few creatives that are creating products or experiences for the community to be able to engage in, that brings like a sense of joy, a sense of like coming togetherness, a sense of third place accessibility. That's going to cost money to do that. And in order for that to happen, you have to think about how much is it going to cost to, do the labor to bring it to life, the time it's going to take to market it, communication, managing. Um, and so you have to think, well, how can you bring on some revenue to help make these other types of metrics of profitability, like connection, available? So sponsorships are one way to go into that, for example. And that I also was covering little bits of the logistics there. Standardization is, do we want to do this again? What's the bare minimum that we need to do in order to make this happen again, and how can we build upon that? That's looking at your different metrics, and figuring out what a standard event would be if it was successful, and then evaluating how you have approached something to see what worked, what didn't work, what you'd want to do more of, what you'd want to change. Right? Right. So research is really important. When I was working with the Jazz Mural project, I did a lot of history of the, the musicians in the area, and the gentleman who owned the building who wanted the mural done, he was wanting to highlight, and celebrate the history of jazz music in the New Bedford area. And the initial idea they gave me was to do a grid of portraits of these different musicians. And so I was very lucky. I said, can you please give me creative licensure to put this idea together, and research a little bit more to figure out how I could bring your vision to life. So they gave me the licensure to put the design together, and I ended up creating a piece that was very much about like a candid. I'll actually go back up to that slide. It's near the beginning. I ended up creating this design that was more about them having a candid moment performing together. I don't know if any of you have been to live music performances. There's a really amazing air of like celebration, the like almost this like almost sometimes you have this like really cool ecstatic experience, like when you're there like watching the musicians perform, listening to these really cool poetic things that they're saying on their instruments, the way that they're kind of playing hacky sack with one another as they're exchanging different like solo moments and then coming back to like the head of the song. It's a really cool experience. And so when I was trying to do the research for that project, I was trying to think about creatively, how could I provide that experience for the audience who sees that without them knowing what they're looking at, without them having to think like, why am I looking at this? I just wanted them to have a guttural reaction of like seeing music being celebrated. So that was a bit of the research there. Working with a creative team and researching. So when it comes to researching with a creative team, what I've noticed is work with others who do their chores. And when I say chores, I mean, it's really easy to have lots of inspiration and lots of really cool ideas, but it takes work to bring something to life. And what kind of chores are involved? In my experience with the Long Swan project, we've got music we have to practice, develop. We have shows that we have to book. We have to promote the shows. We have to record the music. We have video productions that we have to work on. So there's this myriad of list of things that we have to get done in order for the project to collectively be able to move forward. And what I think is really amazing about that project, two of the members in that band, Andy Hopkinson, he started this really cool project called Everybody Wins. It's a music event production series where he uses places like Gallery X. He's now starting to use venues in Fairhaven. And he puts these shows together where he curates music performers to have access to a live audience and make sure that they get paid. He uses a door fee to do that. And he's doing a really great job, like going beyond being a performer and being more of a community engager. So working with a creative team means like work with people who like in their nature, their vision kind of lines up with yours, and also the visions that they have that are slightly outside of the Venn diagram that you're working with together is harmonious or complementary to what you're wanting to do, so that it has this really cool collective growth around it. Another one of the members of the Long Swan Band, Michael McLean, he has this really cool event series he runs called Stoveboat Concerts out of the Interwoven venue that's located downtown. And the Stoveboat Concerts, they do the same thing, but they take more of an acoustic music approach. And so working with the team, I think, is really important because the team members are autonomous. They have their own creative practice. They have their own business mindset, and they have a set of goals they're trying to accomplish. And there's that alignment that happens naturally. I've learned that potential is very slightly dangerous from a business point of view. If you have like parties or entities you're working with that have a potential, but they're not executing on what they want to try to bring to life yet, it can cause a lag in time, it can cause a lag in progress, because if someone's potentially interested in doing something but they don't execute on it, it's not that they're bad, it's not that they're lazy. They might not have all the tools ready to go. They might not have the team ready to go. They may not have a clear vision. I've been in that position before where I didn't have the clear vision. And so I was maybe going in more of a sporadic direction instead of a focused direction. So when you're working and building a creative team, you want to try to create like a checkbox of like, what are you looking for? What is the project about? And whoever you're bringing on, is there enough alignment within that group to make the project move forward? And then this other component, bring the music and art scene together. This is more for the side B sound. I think there's this amazing effort in New Bedford where they're taking the business world, like the EDC and the creative, the Explore New Bedford, and you've got these really amazing entities like you've got Kilburn Studios, you've got Hatch Street Studios, Cummings Buildings, you've got all these independent business owners downtown. And they're thinking about the arts as this industry of potential, like tourism, entertainment. And it makes me think of cities like Salem, New Orleans. I recently took a trip down to New Orleans and I was at the French Quarter Fest, and the venues, they have a much like unique and different history, and it's been around for a lot longer. But what I saw when I was down there was one venue after the next that was like highlighting and celebrating and using music to like attract a lot of revenue into the city, highlighting already on the talents that were there. So I feel like New Bedford is starting to move in that direction of, you know, collectively marketing the creative talents in this area to bring more revenue in to each of us, but from a bit of a team point of view and also as independent artist point of view. We have to then plan and organize and actually break down your projects into manageable tasks. So when it came to the jazz mural, my job was to design. My job was to manage the team of assistants and also to learn how to operate the boom lift and to make sure that the project was done on deadline. We were racing against a tropical storm that was coming in. We ended up finishing that project less than an hour before that tropical storm hit. Luckily, we were using acrylic-based paints that dry really quickly. It was in the middle of the summer, so the dry time was like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So just as that storm was getting ready to hit, we finished it. And also we were racing against the timeline of when we had access to the boom lift, because boom lifts are really expensive. So when you break your project down into manageable tasks, you're like, okay, I need to have A, B, and C done by the end of the day. I need to have A, B, and C done by the end of the week. I need to reach out and communicate with this party by this point and this time, check in with this party, see if they have what they need. Create a schedule. Schedules are fantastic. I use Google Calendar, AI. I'd like to eventually get better at using AI to help become like this amazing assistant, because doing everything independently, manually gets kind of cumbersome. And I have a lot of systems that I build and work with, but it would be really awesome to like get better at doing systems design. So I encourage you to learn about how to use AI to help you develop your own systems for managing your schedule. Schedule for marketing, schedule for managing projects, schedule for communicating with all the team members, schedule for communicating with sponsors, marketing campaigns, and all that. Keep an eye on your schedule and be kind to yourself too. Like make sure you schedule regular self-love sessions that allow you to reflect on the progress you made, things that you need to improve on, and like why you're doing what you're doing, so that you don't accidentally get caught in this like rut-like mindset of it just being work all day, you know. Decide on the resources that you need. Each project is unique. Depending on what your end goal is, you're going to need a certain set of resources. If it's access to a venue, studio space, raw materials, access to legal assistance for contracts, access to accountants to help manage, or things like what is it? Intuit Pro is a really great program to help manage, you know, finances. Decide on the resources needed for information, like give yourself a chance to attend training programs like this one, amazing peer-to-peer sessions, to help you get the resources on learning what resources you need to get more access to. Decide on the team roles needed and confirm your team. So every time you create a project, like when I was working on the Site Be Sound project, there were, I guess, 3 sets of teams. There was myself, who was like in the managing team, and I was working with 2 other individuals. Taylor Hickey, she's amazing. We have a show coming up soon at the Narrows Center with Dawn Wilkinson. Her work is fantastic. I recommend you look her up, Taylor Hickey. She was managing the artists at the Site Be Sound, and then Michael McLean was managing the sound setup, and he was managing the bands for the Site Be Sound to make sure the bands had all the material they needed, all of the breakdown material, all of the PA system was set up. And then I was kind of a part of this third team, managing the sponsors and managing communications with the venue to make sure everything went well. So when you decide on the team roles, what you're creating your breakdown of project into manageable tasks, and then looking at which team members are going to be in charge of doing certain tasks. I feel like a really great project to kind of do a shout out for is Andy Anello. I don't know if you're still here, Andy. I know you're supposed to be muted, but I love how you handle the Body event. And I see that there's like a really solid team that helps lead and maintain that. And that's been going on for quite a while. And it creates a really strong vibe that has like that third place. It's a safe place. It's a place to kind of meet up with friends. It's a great dance environment. But that's another really great example of a project that has a solid set of teams that continues the viability of that project. Budgeting. This one's hard. As artists, this one is really hard because we love what we do, but we can't keep doing it if we can't pay for it. And it's a long game, and we have to be mindful of, if we really love doing it, we're in it for the long haul, but we need to pay bills with this stuff. Unfortunately, there's been this idea, I've been guilty of it in the past, where if you love what you do, why are you charging money for it? And it's because you have bills to pay and you need to be able to continue to do it. And so these are some of the basic things that should be considered when you're figuring out if you want to make a project move forward: the material, the labor, the rent, the insurance, the taxes. Taxes, of course, are considered like, you pay taxes based on the money that you earned at the end, and you want to make sure you have money set aside to pay those. Taxes are different based on what type of entity you're operating as. If you're operating as a sole proprietor, an LLC, DBA, if you're S Corp, C Corp, it varies. If you're a 1099 person like myself, if you're getting a W-2, but I heavily encourage taking advantage of the peer-to-peer sessions, the EDC training, NB100 programs that help artists learn more about those types of things. Material, labor, rent, those are overhead costs. A project's going to take a certain amount of those things in order to be executed well. Try to be realistic. And I would say when it comes to the material costs, give yourself a tiny bit margin, because you're probably going to need to buy one other thing at least, I'll say, to get a project done. And then, of course, obviously, pay yourself. Labor, make sure that you pay yourself, make sure you pay those who are working with you, and you get what you pay for. And so if you have a project that has a low budget, if you're starting off with a lot of volunteer labor, the quality reflects the time invested, and the time invested is the revenue that's given to those who are giving their time. So it's a really it's an interesting, delicate, organic structure to work with when it comes to managing labor, material, rent, and the revenue that feeds into that. But just think about doing like a basic Excel spreadsheet and look at one of the projects you're trying to bring to life and ask yourself, like, how much does it cost for this project to succeed from a budgeting point of view? Right. Assembling your team. For the jazz mural, there was the Historic Society building owner, the team of amazing assistants, the company that was providing the boom lift, the Superflat organization who's doing an amazing job helping to facilitate that the project went through successfully. For the Long Swan project, there's the musicians, the venues, the bookers, the promoters. The reason I'm mentioning the Long Swan project is because I've met a lot of really amazing creative, like, musical talents in this area, and they're incredible at providing this experience for the audience when they're performing. But I've noticed there's a lag in promoting and booking. One of the most common things that I see when we've had shows, we've only been a band for like about a year and a half, 2 years. And one of the common patterns I'm noticing already is venues look at your website and your online presence, and they look at how well you promote the show that's coming up. And the way that you promote the show, you can do it again via website, social medias. There's different demographics for different social medias. You've got the Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got YouTube, you've got, of course, the independent websites that you're designing, but cross-pollinate your promotion and work with the ones that do their chores. When I say do their chores, I mean, let's say, like, there was a possible event we were going to perform at Parlor. The party who was booking us, they did not respond to the emails. And so the whole team, there's a whole group of people you're working with as a music performer, they didn't get back to us. And so we booked that date in our calendars. One of us lost a really big gig because we thought we were doing that. And that person who was booking for that venue, they didn't reply. And so we ended up not doing that gig because there was some sort of communication with the booker. And so, and it's a learning process. Like when you're working in the music scene, you're always working with multiple schedules, multiple interests. Like a venue is concerned with putting butts in the seats. A venue is concerned with ticket sales. Musicians are obviously concerned with being able to afford to perform because it takes gas, it takes money to maintain the equipment, and of course the labor of performing. The bookers, they are managing a lot of parties simultaneously, and so they need the information to be delivered, like flyers, who you are, what you're about. And then the promoters are basically a nonstop marketing entity of different sorts, and there's all these different types of promoters. Some of them use like hard posters. I run the Siren page. That's like a promotion entity that's talking about the art scene and the music scene in the New Bedford region, but it also covers the South Coast, and it reaches into Rhode Island, and it covers creatives that are in this area that are working outside of the area but based in the area. So that like promoters, they're going in a lot of different directions at once. If you give your information to the promoting party so that they can easily get that information out, some promoters charge a fee. Right now the Siren's free. I plan on keeping it that way because it's about trying to enhance what's going on in this scene, both musically and creatively, and community engagement wise. And then when it comes to working with a group, when you're putting together festivals, if you're putting together events, like there's a lot of really cool events that happen with Hatch Street Open Studios, the festivals that happen downtown, the 4752 festival. When I was putting together Sight Be Sound, I was looking at a team of the venue. The venue has a certain interest and they have a certain role to play, making sure the venue is available, making sure that the staff has all the information they need to operate as efficiently as possible. The managers, as far as like band managers, the artist performers, the music groups, and of course the sponsors. I left out the sponsors right there. They're a vital component to the team. When it comes to sponsors, one of the biggest things I've noticed, it's like a matchmaking process. So sponsors, when they're giving funds to something, they're basically saying, I'd love to be a part of making this happen, but I don't want to do any of the chores to make it happen. So they give money, revenue, products, service, they make things available so that they can show that they believe in the idea behind a campaign that an event is trying to promote. So sponsors are very important. Take care of them, appreciate them, but then at the same time, like that's having like a strong like marketing presence in any of the projects that you're trying to promote. Setup workflow is vital. This goes back to like putting your to-do list on like a calendar and figuring out day by day what you need to do to help get yourself closer to that bigger deadlines that are coming up. Like set up a workflow for for the show coming up at FET, we've got a lot of promoting that needs to happen, reaching out with other bands. We recently met with one of the other bands we're performing with. We created a hybrid set list to perform in conjunction with the Long Swan set list and the Jesse the Tree set list. So the workflow was, okay, we'll meet, we'll practice, we'll put this new set of products together, and then we'll hone it in, and then we'll perform that. Other parts of the workflow where we'll collectively promote on different platforms, we'll collectively market, and then also the workflow when it comes to promotion, we'll kind of market our sibling or our colleagues who are also performing with us or who have performed with us in the past. Because one of the things I've noticed about filling the venues is you celebrate your peers. And so an example, we've got Sleepless in New England, shout out Hernandez, we've got NB Rude Boys, we've got Molly O'Leary, we've got Ian Legg with Punk Cellist, we've got there's a myriad of amazing creatives in the music scene that work both in the collaborative creative engagement as well as on the performing side. So the workflow is mindful of the other parties that you're working with. Also having regular practice sessions, artists in the studios, doing regular studies, as a painter, regularly practicing technique, materials, booking 6 to 8 weeks in advance. There's a set of studio workshops that are going on right now that are promoting fundamentals of technique and practice when it comes to drawing. In my case, if you have a show that's coming up, let's say if you have a series, a body of work that you're wanting to create and you're wanting to highlight that series, highlight the concept, maybe reach out and work with other entities that are also working in that. Maybe look at other businesses that are also thinking about those same types of concepts and do cross-promoting campaigns with one another. that's an example of like regular practice sessions together, practice cross-pollinating and cross-promoting with other entities. There's actually a really cool cross-promoting thing that's going on right now. It's a poetry group, Anomaly Poetry. They're working with, there's a business in the Kilburn Mills, I want to say, it begins with a C, I can't think of it, it's like a yoga studio, but the two of them are marketing together to bring awareness of like mental wellness, mindfulness, and creativity. And it's killing me that I can't think of the name of that studio, but they're working together and they're highlighting both of their business practices while creating at the same time. On the execution side, when I was working on the mural, it was a matter of installing the design on time. Again, we only had access to the boom lift for a couple of weeks, and then we were also racing against the weather. And then when it comes to execution on the mural, I had to regularly check in on everyone involved, make sure they have what they need. It was really hot in the summer, make sure everyone had access to water, make sure the paints from the paint company we're working with, is it Hervey Paints? Someone who knows the company, they can do a shout out if they want. I think it's Hervey Paints. But they're a company based in New Bedford. So I was checking in to make sure we had the materials delivered on site on time, make sure we had I had the contracts sent in on time, the design approval, all these little things on this to do list, make sure those were done on time. On the music side, creating a solid set to perform, making it about engagement with the audience and with one another, creating that really strong atmosphere that kind of creates a celebratory or an inviting and like nature for people to come and like enjoy time with their friends, enjoy time with their family, and like creating also like these types of third places for people to go to just kind of like reflect and like or chill out or just like have fun, like and socially engage with one another. And as far as executing on the entertaining event with the sight v sound, it was mostly just making sure everything was in place. Musicians were arriving on time, artists were arriving on time. The two individuals who were helping Chiclaine and Taylor, they had everything they needed to help with the artist, making sure the venue had everything they needed and the sponsors were getting properly represented at the event. So it was executing, making sure everybody had what they needed and helping whatever their job was, helping making their job more easy to execute. Document and record is very helpful. Take lots of photos in the process. This is for marketing, future marketing. When you're doing something, document it. Take photos of their process shots, take photos of the materials you're using, take photos of the final product, give the audience like a little bit of a teaser on something you're getting ready to start. If you're getting ready to do a collaboration with another party, kind of do a little bit of a shout out, in your marketing campaign of like where we're going to be possibly working with this entity, but don't give away everything. Like you want to keep it, on the DL, you want to keep it hidden enough so that you don't leak out too much of that inspiration, and you want to give your audience something to look forward to. Other types of more logistical documenting, like Dropbox, Google Drive, contracts are awesome because they keep things clear, what each party is expecting from the other party, and then making sure that in the mural example, making sure the design was officially approved before installing so that there's record that this is what they agreed on. So you don't have to go through the process of having to change anything after you've already put material on the wall. You want to get footage of what you're working on. That I was just saying that a second ago. Get plenty of footage of the event happening or the product that you're creating, the process, the inspiration. Another fun way to document and record, do podcasts, do YouTube videos, meet up with other promoters that are looking for, content creators to share the story of what they're trying to get more exposure on through their practice. Like that's another really great way to document and record. It's doing it more in a public way. Right, this kind of goes into marketing and promoting really well. Use your work to highlight the efforts of other parties. That's a really strong way to market. When I'm working on the Instagram platform, I love tagging. I love using stories. If there's something that Explore New Bedford's doing, I try to post it on the story for the Siren page, or I post it on the stories for the Long Swan or for the studio page. If there's something going on with NB Creative, if there's something going on with that music hall, the Narrow Center, Hatch Street, Kilburn, any business that you've worked with, any creative entity you've worked with, like do shout outs with one another. Websites, really important. Websites are a really great way to give your audience a place to go to find out more information, a basic calendar of what you have coming up, products that you have, you're making accessible to them, services you're making accessible to them. Social media promotion is key. So social media, we're all like, it's got its downside. It's got, there's a lot of crap that's on social media that's like more on the negative side, leaning side. Algorithms are like constantly updating, and there's AI that's thrown into the mix now. What I try to do every time I see something on social media that is like negative of some sort coming from some random third party, I always just hit the X, like see less than. Every time I see something coming from a colleague or from a fellow creative or of someone who I know is doing some really amazing things, I click on things like show more, or I share it, or I try to promote it. But social media is basically like a connective marketing, also like highlighting and promotional tool that can be used, but it has to be used mindfully and thoughtfully. Again, actively promote your industry neighbors. There's a huge movement, I feel like, that's like going on in New Bedford, where they're starting to look more at how the arts are a part of the tourism and entertainment sector. And there's this big thing that is going on where there's this business development that the city is wanting to do, but the artists are not exactly excited about that. And I feel like there needs to be more of a hybrid promotional energy between those two types of entities, where the creatives get better at learning basic business practice, get better at promoting and marketing autonomously, right? And then the business sector folks, like the business development sector folks, are a bit more empathetic and like patient, but also holding creatives' feet to the fire in a way that says like, what are you creating? What are you producing? Where can we find more of that? How is it going to be made accessible? And the creatives, like the studio practice that we have, like what products are we creating, but at the same time, don't lose your soul in the process. But what we need to find more of a hybrid diplomatic connection between the creative business practice scene and the business development scene, because we're at a point right now in New Bedford, especially, where the city is looking at the creative scene as revenue income. And so the creatives need to be more on top of developing their basic business acumen, and the business side needs to be better at like being mindful that the creatives were very much discouraged from having that business acumen. Like even on the academic side, universities, like they're like, art is like for the sake of art. It's not business. It's not, don't sell your soul. So like artists are coming out of this like collective mind space of like, their time being valued, their time, creating a product, creating a service. Artists are extremely important at, giving like societal reflections on both like intimate and like macro levels of things that are going on in the world. So while we're doing that, we also need to join that larger table of a conversation of having a basic business practice, so that we can more easily expose the value that creatives bring to the market. And keep an eye on who promotes well. Keep an eye on who does their homework. One of the things I've learned working in a lot of different directions, there's ones that just want to create, but they don't want to do their chores. Now, it's not that they don't actually want to do it, they might not know how to do it. And that's what things like these peer-to-peer sessions are really powerful for, really great at, because when you learn how important it is to regularly promote what's going on with your entity, with your studio, and then tag people you're working with, so that more eyes come onto what you're doing, and then they can help share what you're working on. Promoting is really, really important. If anything, I think artists should think about learning how to develop a practice on marketing and promoting more, a lot more. And then feedback, really important. Collect feedback from your peers, collect feedback from your project partners, collect feedback from the clients you worked with, collect feedback from, audience who were exposed to what you were seeing. Learn what worked, what needs improvement, constantly work on this. Like for the mural project, what worked was having a solid team that was in charge of the management of the project, a team that was in charge of installing the project, and a team that was in charge of raising funds for the project. That was incredible, super flat, just blew it out of the water. It was incredible. Working with the Site V Sound project, a team of like managers helping with the sound, helping with the visual artist and the venue. I think that could have been managed better, as far as having a team dedicated to finding sponsorships. Don't try to take everything on your own. It's very tempting to want to micromanage. Work with ones who, again, have a common vision. And there's a Venn diagram, like a healthy Venn diagram, overlap with what they're wanting to accomplish with, and in conjunction with what you're trying to accomplish, and think more in a team mindset. And then work to create a better process for the next project, so that you have more of a streamline approach. So that way your project can expand and grow, your ideas can expand and grow, they can modulate in a healthy way. Like, I liked how this idea worked, but I want to modify this, or I want to try this approach next time. Okay. All right. So I think, let me see if I can stop share. I know that was a lot in a small amount of time, but I wanted to make sure there was plenty of time. We've got 15 minutes left. We're open for questions or comments. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to that.
Yes, at this time, we're going to open it up for questions. I'll start with the questions in the chat first. And then if there are more questions to add, we will address them. Please feel free to unmute yourself when we are finished with the questions in the chat first. We would love for this to be an active and open conversation. I know I saw one in here from David Willegas question, asking, what was the name of the financial software you used?
Excel and Intuit Pro.
Intuit Pro. That's what it was.
Intuit Pro QuickBooks is fantastic.
Excellent.
Is there a monthly fee for that? Do you know?
Yes, there is. But it's worth it. It's worth it because when it comes time for those financial reports at the end of the year, I go click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of these grants, like they want to see receipts at the end, and that's maybe when you get paid, so, or reimbursed or whatever. So
yes, I have a debit card for the business. Some people have like suggested getting a credit card to build credit. I'm not a financial guru. I'm very much like bare bones, make sure things pay for themselves, try to pay for themselves, and keep a record of where all the money goes. So I use Venmo and PayPal and the debit card. So it all the records go back to that. And if you use Venmo or PayPal, make sure that you regularly push the button that says send the money to your account. I have had an issue in the past where if people are paying me via Venmo, the money accumulates in Venmo and then I'm paying others and it doesn't show the record of me paying others because that money accumulated in Venmo. So make sure when people pay you through Venmo to regularly send that money to your bank account.
and one little trick that I heard of, I'm working with the Cutty Hunk Museum to do their website and then their fundraising. And PayPal actually has, I think it has, and I'm looking at it, has like a option to click that you cover the processing fees of the donation. So the organization doesn't pay for the processing fees, which can add up.
Yes.
That's something that I wasn't aware that you had the.
Yes, Eventbrite does the same thing. You have to click that button that says that you'll absorb the fees for the ticket processing and or refunds.
Okay, yeah.
I'd also love to, if anyone's interested, open the floor for other experiences that you've had as creatives or as business owners. How does it affect credit and how do you track the process when you write it off for taxes? So when it comes to writing it off, there's different categories. So in Intuit Pro, like you can create the categories. There's labor, there's material cost for projects, there's there's like ways to categorize the money that you bring in, like, and why the money was brought in. If it was like for a certain project and it was a labor, you know, that you made money on, or if it was consultation, there's ways that you can set up categorizations of how the money comes in or goes out, and then that automatically goes into your report that's created that you then send off to whoever you're working with for the taxes. I think the biggest thing I want to stress that I've learned is marketing collaboration is really important. I've noticed on the marketing platforms, like everyone naturally we get caught up in the silos of what we're doing. But I noticed that the events that seem to have more of a spread are events that market not just what they're doing, but who they're associating with, who's a part of it, even in the smallest way. I think it's really neat to see what Hatch Street Studios is doing right now. They're starting to meet and they're starting to collectively promote what they're doing as a whole entity, you know, like a big engine made of all these different parts. And so they're branding themselves collectively and also independently under that umbrella. And so that's a really strong example, I think, of like when you're marketing, like shout out to the different, also like Andy and Ella, when you do when y'all do the body events at co-creative and body is another really good example of marketing collaboration. And then the different artists that y'all bring on who are doing the mixing at each event, that's really, really strong. And then of course, let's see, there's so much, there's so many really good examples of people like who have really strong collaborative marketing practices. I know that social media is like a bit more like a millennial Gen Z thing, and it has a different nature to it. But tagging is really helpful. Like if I make a post about a content piece, I'll tag who's responsible for that piece, you know, happening, where it's happening, and then like try to do hashtags that are subject related to what that piece and that post is about. You can add the location if there's something like place sensitive that the piece is about, the post is about. But those things kind of they incrementally add up. And the way the algorithms work, they think in a stream. So like if you make a post a day, a post every 2 days, it's not even about making lots of posts, but like more focused posts, you know. The next body event that's coming up, like I'm seeing more events, more posts about that. And so like posting like a myriad of different visual content, but having the same tags or the same hashtags, but then it starts to get picked up by like the claws of the algorithm of some sort, and then it starts to get shown across different streams.
I have a question. Well, or maybe a comment or a question. Is it okay to
Yeah.
just use the voice? First of all, like I really appreciate the presentation. I thought it was awesome and really thoughtful, and I appreciate the shout outs. I have like a question about like especially putting together teams and working with folks. Like, you know, like like it's just challenging to navigate in this space where there's always more work to be done than there is money to pay for it on these kinds of like DIY projects. And I like principally want to pay everyone involved. And so like, but it's not always possible to pay everyone what I think they deserve, like with the budgets that we have. So there's like this thing of like, you know, trying to find ways to like have people invested in a project. Like what I found is like having people invested in a project and where you can clearly identify what they're getting out of it and what you can offer them and communicating that very clearly. But then when you're working on like a new project, like we have like this roller disco event that we're doing. That's like the latest example. And it's like putting together a team of people who are interested, who you think might want to be involved. But it's like, it's very hard for me in any sort of like, I'm very much like a consensus-based person. Like I don't want to like dictate anything to anyone just that's like by nature, but also like when there's not like what money does is it makes it easy to tell people what to do. You know, you can be like, you know, because you know it's very clear what they're getting out of it. But if you have like a big group of people that you're trying to manage and like have do their chores, I think that's a nice way to put it. It's hard to have accountability if that's the easier way to say it. It's hard to have accountability when there's like a lack of money. And that's like something that it's like hard to navigate.
Yes, that's a really great comment. One of the things that I'm starting to do in my practice more is look at the Venn diagram crossovers. So if somebody is wanting to work with you, they should have an agenda of their own of what they're trying to bring to life in their projects, and that should have an overlap. Because if the funds aren't available, because I know labor costs money, and if you're doing something that you love and you're trying to bring it to life and you're not able to properly pay yourself in the process, but you're bringing something to life, right? Like I'll use myself as an example. So for the Long Swan project, I teach, and I've tried to create these independent contractor opportunities for early animators. And what my mistake was, my thoughts were they would be just as excited about bringing a project to life. But what they were more excited about naturally was, how can I get paid and what do you want when? It's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense as an employee, but they're subcontractors, not employees, and they're operating independently, but they weren't in alignment vision wise. And so they're working on these other different types of like directions in a way. So if the project was geared in those directions, they would have been more on fire, but that wasn't the project that I was working on. So with the Long Swan Band now, like all of us are wanting to create a certain type of content. We're wanting to create like original music that reflects life, chaos, and turning that into like alchemy of like better ways of approaching and seeing things into songs that are produced and then performed with other bands who are actively wanting to show their work and then who also actively promote their work. And so I don't have to chase people as much and say, hey, can you do this thing? Can you do this thing? Because there's not enough energy to manage all those tasks. So now I look for that alignment. I don't know if that helps, but looking for alignment, like the conversations with the parties you're working with, like I ask them, what do you want? What are you wanting to do? And seeing if there's that alignment right there, because that saves so much energy. There was a comment I just saw, like, is there a part 2 about project development? I was trying to, in the process, like mention bits of project development along the way. So from the a zoomed out point of view, there's like the ideation of what you're wanting to do. And then once you know that you're going to start working on that project, the finance side, like where's the funds coming from? If it's sponsorship, if it's sales, if it's grants, right? How is it going to be funded? And then logistics, like what is it going to take to bring that project to life based on how you're presenting that? Is it a product, an experience, an event of some sort? And that creates the to-do lists. The to-do lists like range from like the material execution to the team communication, timeline development of the tasks that need to be done, checking in, making sure wherever the finances are coming from, those parties are taken care of and they're getting what they paid for. And then like reviewing that process as you're executing it, you know, and then afterward and communicating with all the parties involved to see, did we like this? Do we want to do this more? What could we do better? And so it's a super like small nutshell zoomed out version, and it varies from one creative project to the next. But you end up creating this like metric system for yourself of like, let's say if you wanted to create a body of work and you wanted to show that work at a certain gallery, for example, the gallery is looking for, just like venues are looking for people to come and buy beverages or buy things, the galleries are looking to move pieces. So they would move pieces based on how much of a following do you have, how active are you in communicating ideas about what your work's about, and if you do like if you start promoting the show that you have, do you have enough of a following to bring attention to that venue, that gallery, that, you know, whatever space you're working in, it's going to be a solid collaboration business wise for both of you in a way. And then you should also be thinking about who you're going to work with. Are they doing that for themselves, right? Because if you let's say you have a venue that wants to work with you, but they're not doing their homework and you're doing all the promotional work, all the things, it's great to learn. It's great to like develop a work for yourself, work habit and cycle for yourself. But in the end, it's not healthy to work with that party if they're not aggressively doing their homework, the marketing homework, the promotional homework. But then everyone's in a different place. Everyone's in a different place. Like I remember just a few years ago, I did not know half the things I'm talking to y'all about right now. I was 100% creative practice, art for the sake of art. Now I know how vital it is to like have that practice down, but like be mindful of what you want to do with it, who you're sharing it with, and are those basic business and marketing practices in place for you to be able to keep doing it? Because if they're not, what's going to happen is the practice is going to dry up because you won't be able to afford time-wise, material-wise to do it because it doesn't have that business viability quality to it. And that's what I was saying earlier, the creative sector and the business sector, there's a merging that's starting to happen. So there's all these diplomatic conversations between the two that are needing to happen, which what I love about these peer-to-peer sessions, they make that a reality.
All right. We do not have any more time for questions right this very second, but if you do want to slide them into the chat, if Kat's open to, I can send them over to Kat and maybe Kat can reach back out to you guys individually. I think that should not be an issue. Kat, if that's appropriate, I shall do that.
It's fine. I love it. I love it.
Excellent. Go right ahead and do that if you have time, because I have to do these closing remarks and I'd like to, and then during these closing remarks is when you guys have time to go right ahead. So I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. This was a great session. I'd like to also thank Kat once again for all of their hard work. Also, I'd like to thank our funder, the City of New Bedford, for making this possible. Please be sure to visit our website at newbedfordcreative.org. That's newbedfordcreative.org, and join our free creative directory. This is the list we use to promote on our social media throughout the year. Make sure to add your event, gallery exhibitions, or more to our calendar page that is linked to South Coast Today. We want our creatives to excel, and we are here to help. We have plenty of peer-to-peer sessions coming up. Please join us for our next session, How Creatives Can Be Seen and Found in a Data-Driven World with Laurie Zapalak on Tuesday, May 14th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And we will insert the Eventbrite link right in the chat if you give us a second. Lastly, a recording of today's session will be on our YouTube channel within the next week. And then you can find us at New Bedford Creative on YouTube. Have a great day, and thank you all for your participation.